So this will be the last API thing we look at, I think, which is async storage. As Brent mentioned at some point, it's like a poorly named local storage. The only real difference is that, like the name indicates, every operation is asynchronous. So if you want to store some data in async storage and retrieve it the next time your app launches, you can't know if it's there or not until your app has already launched and potentially has rendered the first time. So you frequently need to do something like show a loading screen, and as you're awaiting your local storage item to come back, show a loading spin or something. Then when it comes back, you need to check if the value stored there is null. So the basic way this works is it's a key value store, just like local storage. You can do two things, really. You can set an item in local storage, and this will persist it to the device. If you delete the app, it'll disappear. But other than that, it'll be saved permanently. And this happens asynchronously. It can also fail and throw an error. After something has been stored, you can retrieve it using Getitem. This will work regardless of if the app is closed and relaunched, killed and restarted, of course. The only time it disappears, as far as I know, is when you delete the app. So you can set keys, you can get them back, and this is useful for storing lots of stuff that's simple. I wouldn't store anything massive in async storage, like I wouldn't start storing image data. Those are probably still better as files. But you can store user preferences, small chunks of JSON, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use local storage, setItem and getItem, async storage, setItem and getItem to persist the form data that you store in the feedback form. So right now, if I type my name and hit refresh, data goes away. I have to type my name again. Let's try using async storage to persist it. And there are plenty of other ways to persist data. Often you'll persist things to a server, so using your own backend, using Firebase, whatever, you'll just retrieve it every time the app launches. That's one way. You can persist things to an actual database on the device, so you can use Realm, you can use a wrapper around SQLite. You can persist things if you're using Redux with Redux Persist, and that sort of takes care of automatically persisting subsets of your Redux store. But async storage is like the most basic way to persist things, and a lot of other wrappers like Redux Persist are based on it. So let's do a simple example here. The first thing we're going to do is import async storage. And then I'm first going to save the data out of the first form field. So we're going to save the full name text input into async storage. And I guess we want to do that in onSubmit editing. Now the first thing that I need to do is I need to record the value of the input field as it changes. Right now we don't actually retrieve the value from this anywhere. And so what I want to do is I want to put in state value for name, which will just start as the empty string. And every time I type into the text input, I want name to update. Let me just quickly look up the API for React Native text input and make sure that I'm using the right onChange property. So I want to use onChange text as part of the text input. And every time the text changes, I'm going to set state, updating the name field. I'm also going to set the value of the text input to be the name that's stored in state. So let me just start by making sure that this works. So seems to be working. So as I'm changing the text in the input, just like you would do on web really, I'm putting the value into state, and then I'm saying that the value of the text input is the value in the component state. So that's working all right. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to actually save the current value into async storage. So you should almost always do a try catch just in case saving into async storage fails. And then I'm going to await setting an item, which means I need this function to be asynchronous. Normally, for the key that you use, you just pull it out and make it a constant up above somewhere, like const name field key. Pretty much anything you want, just pulling it out because we'll end up using it in another place also. So we'll save under that key the current name that's part of the field. And then in the case of an error, we don't really want to do anything. So if it doesn't get saved, that's fine. We just won't save any name and you'd have to type it again next time. So that should save this. And now when we load this component for the first time, we want to try retrieving the data with Getitem. So in component did mount, I guess will mount is good. In component will mount, I'm going to have an async function where I try to retrieve the key that we pulled out earlier, so the name field key. And if the value has never been saved, it will be null. So if it's not null, then we have data. So in this case, let's set state, and we will set name. So this should update the state on launch, not immediately, but when the component mounts. So it should happen fast enough that you can't really tell the difference. Let's see if it works. If I type my name in here, and then submit with enter, then refresh, it's not there. So now I get to figure out why. Let's see. Let me first test that the value is getting saved correctly. So let me console.log the name, and let's just confirm that there's no error. So there is an error saving. Let's see, what am I doing wrong?
I saw a typo in the import of async storage.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. Let's see if that alone fixes it. Saved. And there it is. Nice catch. It's funny how you can do this like 100 times, and then as soon as you're on stage, even just like typing is difficult. But got there eventually. Anyway, that's pretty much the gist of async storage. simple key value store. Everything's async, so you have to make sure that you're awaiting. Otherwise, you just won't get anything back. And so that means often before you actually have a value yet. So for example, we could have said that name starts as undefined maybe. We might want to do something like, if there's no name, we just return an activity indicator. I won't show this because it's not that interesting or difficult, but common pattern because async storage does take a minute to load. And I think, as you'll find, making larger apps, you rarely use async storage directly except for like maybe really simple settings. Most of the time you'll use an abstraction, whether that's one you write yourself because it's not that difficult to write a good one, or whether it's Redux Persist or something else. And then as soon as you have like 10,000 rows that you want to save, you definitely don't want to save it in async storage. You'll want to use Realm or SQLite wrapper or something like that.